Hello friends, I'm Dr. Mahesh Mohite from Raigad, Navi Mumbai. I'm here to deliver the next talk about series of steerage in YouTube channel, which is a concept of our beloved teacher Dr. Y.K. Amdekar sir. I'm going to talk on oxygen therapy in general pediatric practice. When do we give oxygen to the pediatric patient? Any child brought sick to your emergency room or to the OPD as per ALS guidelines, irrespective of underlying cause, he is to be given oxygen, though there could be multiple challenges to this treatment. But as kind of a general rule, this is what is still followed. And this is because the commonest cause of death or disability in a sick child is hypoxia. In a spontaneously breathing child with a normally beating heart, when you're giving oxygen to this patient, you're essentially increasing the oxygen content of blood, which will prevent, will improve the oxygenation of the tissue, hence will prevent the damage or death of the tissue. So in any sick child with dropping saturation, one gives oxygen to improve the saturation. Is oxygen given to all children subsequently? Perhaps not. We need to categorize that hypoxia into probably three causes. One could be a type 1 respiratory failure, other could be type 2 respiratory failure, and third could be a shunt pathology. When I say shunt pathology, it is shunting of blood, the deoxygenated blood, to the arterial side through some shunt, commonly the cyanotic heart disease, sometimes rarely intrapulmonary shunts, the arteriovenous shunts or veno-arterial shunts. There, the blood does not go to the alveoli to get oxygenated, hence the given oxygen may or will not be useful to those patients. What about type 1 and type 2 respiratory failure? Type 1 failure is essentially a pathology of the lung where alveolo-capillary membrane is affected, where the gas exchange normally happens. Example being a pneumonia, pulmonary edema, sometimes interstitial lung disease, and conditions like ARDS. And in this condition, increasing the oxygen delivery, increasing the oxygen pressures inside the alveoli will definitely improve the oxygenation of the patient. Hence, this is one condition where oxygen delivery is mandatory whenever there is hypoxic kind of a detection. But in case of type 2 respiratory failure, this is essentially a ventilatory failure where either it's a central neurological cause or peripheral neuromuscular causes or sometimes airway obstruction. Mainly central and peripheral neurological causes where ventilation of the gases is not sufficient. The primary pathology is the collection of CO2 in the alveoli displacing oxygen, and here just giving oxygen to patient at time can be detrimental, which will remove the hypoxic drive and will crash the case. A typical example being Guillain-Barré syndrome. If the Guillain-Barré syndrome with a normal lung otherwise, if you give oxygen to this patient when the respiratory failure happens, the patient may crash, and here the management is not to give oxygen, rather secure the airway and ensure that the ventilation is adequately maintained. How do you give oxygen to the patient? In an emergency room, various devices are there for delivery, which are categorized as high flow and low flow devices. The basic concept is high flow means the device by which all the respiratory requirements of a given patient are fulfilled by the device which you deliver. So, in a simple example, if I give say a 10 kg child, I give a mask oxygen with whatever amount of say simple mask with say 5 liter, 10 liter, he cannot suffice his total respiratory requirement, especially when the child is tachypneic and breathless. And here, whatever you may do, the patient may not get a complete requirement of 100%. So this essentially becomes a low flow device. Vis-a-vis, if I keep this patient with a non-rebreathing mask with 15 liters oxygen or maybe more, and then all his requirements are fulfilled by the delivery which you give, and that becomes a high flow device. A simple Venturi mask which gives very high kind of a oxygen flow, but where there is a controlled of FiO2. So you see a Venturi mask with various FiO2 delivering right from 30% to 60% and still giving all the requirements of the patient, and patient don't have to take extra air from outside the device, and this is called as high flow device. So it is called a high flow. So low flow is the one which does not fulfill all the breathing requirements, gas requirements of a spontaneously breathing patient, and high flow is when all the requirements are fulfilled. Typical example of high flow devices is say high flow nasal cannula or a non-rebreathing mask, or sometimes even the oxygen tent with high in an infant with almost 10 to 15 liters of oxygen being given, and low flow devices or oxygen cannula, the simple nasal mask, etc. Oxygen is sourced in the hospital through the central oxygen system, or sometimes through oxygen cylinders which are of the small size or large size, something like 1350 liters to 6500 liters, and sometimes even in oxygen concentrators. But when there is a home oxygen requirement, many times we use this commercially available oxygen concentrators which can deliver as much as 5 liters per minute. So depending upon the source delivery and requirement, the delivery system or source can be defined. How much oxygen we should give? Initially, when this hypoxic patient is put on oxygen, we give 100% FiO2 to this patient by the given device, and subsequently we down titrate it to achieve saturation above 95, 94 to 97%. We don't want less than that, which may increase the morbidity. We don't want more than 97, which will increase the toxicity of oxygen. Monitor the levels and support till underlying, and we deliver this till the underlying pathology is coming under control. Once that pathology is controlled and child achieves a better oxygenation through a lesser fluid, we down titrate this oxygen to avoid any further toxicity. Severe lung parenchymal disease. When there is a severe disease, alone oxygen delivery may not suffice, and we may have to deliver this oxygen with some pressure devices, which could be non-invasive ventilatory devices, or in like a CPAP, BiPAP, or it could be invasive ventilatory devices, the invasive mechanical ventilation et al, etc. When do we stop oxygen? We target the saturation in pediatric population between 94 to 97%. In a neonatal population, maybe there has been debate about what is the ideal one, but generally what is followed is 90 to 95. Now all these numbers, you never saw anything above 97, simply because something above that is toxic to the lung and various tissues. I will come to that in the subsequent part. Long-standing debate on lower cutoffs, as lower than that can be less toxic, but mortality increases. That's the reason we want it definitely above 90%. When not to give oxygen, are there any contraindications? Yes, it should not be given in type 2 failure when this child is saturating, because by giving so, you are abolishing the hypoxic drive on which this child is breathing. Once you give oxygen, he may start breathing low and he may crash. So first you need to categorize whether you are dealing with type 1 or type 2 failure. And type 2, when I say, there are again two types. One, the airway obstruction pathology, where oxygen is definitely useful, but when there is a neuromuscular failure, the central or peripheral, here definitely giving oxygen can be alone can be detrimental. And here first you need to ensure that the airway is protected and adequate ventilation is achieved, and then only if required, if there is underlying lung pathology, then you may give oxygen once adequate ventilation is achieved. Sometimes neonate duct dependent cyanotic heart diseases could be left ventricular, right ventricular outflow obstruction with a duct patency. Commonly they will present after say 1 to 3 days of life, and these patients, by giving oxygenation, you may be hastening the duct closure, which can be detrimental to the patient. For such patient, certainly your target saturation is not above 80%. So don't give oxygen aggressively to this patient. There is a debate whether shock patient with a circulatory failure with a saturation above 95 should be given oxygen, and there are new trials which are contradictory to the statement, though that is not wholeheartedly accepted in pediatrics. But yes, this patient we should be conservative on giving aggressive oxygen, because once the shock revives, the oxygen free radicals will cause some tissue damage, and mortality and morbidity is increased in such kind of patient, though more details of this research is yet to be available on the pediatric front. Is oxygen toxic to the patient? Yes, it is in certain condition. Yes, any patient with saturation above 100%, or any patient with 100% in all ages is definitely toxic, because that 100% saturation amounts to arterial oxygen anywhere from 80 to maybe 400. So you don't know how much oxygen is coming inside, and that surplus of 100 of PaO2, the attyl oxygen, can be toxic to the tissues. Higher FiO2 itself is toxic to the lung, so try and get the FiO2 even in a sick child to less than 60 to maintain the saturation above 95%. Especially in low birth weight preterm babies, this oxygen saturation above 97% is definitely toxic and damaging, especially that leads to higher chances of retinopathy of prematurity or lung toxicity like BPDs. Post-shock oxygen delivery can lead to free oxygen radical injury and apoptosis of the tissue. That is why one need to be maintaining the saturation, targeting the saturation between 94 to 97 in pediatric patients, and titrate your oxygen delivery according to these numbers. So friends, to summarize, oxygen is a life-saving drug in emergency. All 4D of any drug apply to it. That comes to the drug, the dose, the duration, and the delivery system or the method of delivery. And same thing applies to oxygen. Lesser the better is the new rule in any kind of emergency care. Same thing applies to oxygen as well. Newer concept of less is more applies to oxygen, and that's what I said. We need to be careful while giving oxygen. We will not be giving liberally to every patient, but yes, at the same time, it's a life-saving drug, reducing the mortality and morbidity in any sick child. So every clinic, every emergency room, every IPD should have oxygen source available in any emergency that you may be dealing with. Thank you very much, friends.